I will say the uncomfortable truth is that the non-qualified people are often better marketers. The content that goes on your site, it needs to contain information that answers questions that patients are asking right now. Patient behavior has changed dramatically when they're doing their research around who's going to administer their treatment, about the practice they're going into. Now it's more sophisticated and it's a slower process. On average, somebody would consume several hours of content about any particular service they're researching across 4 different channels and up to 11 different touch points. You don't own your Instagram profile. You don't own your Google profile. Those are rented spaces. The website is where you can properly set out your stall.
Should dentists have their own website? And I don't mean like the practice website, I mean your own individual dentist site. And specifically the question I'm asking is, should associates have their own website? Look, most practices have a website, like 99.9%. And on that website, there's Meet the Team section. And if your practice is well run, that has photos of everyone, a little short bio of each dentist that works there. Therefore, one might argue that an associate really doesn't need a website. Also nowadays, we have Instagram, and a lot of dentists are using that as like a shop front, as a means to communicate with patients, with prospective patients, and DM them, and also a channel for them to be contacted. So if the practice website already exists, and there are channels like Instagram, I ask the question again, do associates need a website in this day and age? So I ran an experiment on our network, Protrusive Guidance. I asked everyone if they had their own website, and the vast majority don't. But then I asked everyone, would you like to have your own website? And virtually everyone's hands went up. So what's holding dentists back? What's holding them back is the effort required. Even though it's easier now with AI and stuff than ever before, most dentists I speak to don't see themselves as savvy enough and techie enough to be able to manage that. Now, me personally, I've had a patient-facing website since I qualified. So 13 years in of having my own website as a dentist. This is because I just come from a background of being a geeky teenager and messing about and creating little websites when I was like 14 years old. So for me, it was actually really easy to have my own WordPress website. Now, over the years, as my dentistry got more sophisticated, so did my website, and it actually took a lot of effort. The sad and embarrassing thing is I haven't actually had time or made it a priority of updating my website over the last 3 years. It's got old stuff on there, it's outdated, and I just can't be bothered. And look, because I'm tech savvy and I know what I'm doing with websites, I did kind of install this all singing, all dancing website, which really wasn't necessary. And now I hate it. So recently I've upgraded to something a lot more simple. A dentist website should just have a few things: a little about me, a little testimonial, and a contact area. And of course, some bells and whistles here and there. I wanted something really low maintenance and easy for patients to navigate. But why? Why did I still need a website? Why didn't I just abandon it? Well, websites still bring in queries. Also, people will Google you. If you're doing any sort of like elective dentistry, if you're doing ortho, bonding, veneers, things that cost a lot of money. I mean, think of it yourself. When you book a holiday or when you book something expensive, do you do your research? Do you do your research on the hotel, the resort, the restaurants when you're gonna get there? Of course, people do. And so when patients are seeking care in their area or trying to solve a specific problem, or maybe they've just met you and they've received a treatment plan from you, you bet they're gonna Google your name. And yes, Instagram might show up, yes, LinkedIn might show up, but having your own website where you're in control and you can have your testimonials, your before and afters, and your digital presence, I think counts for a lot. Also nowadays, in the future, patients are asking ChatGPT, hey, I live in Birmingham and I want to have composite bonding. Who should I go to? And ChatGPT might suggest 4 or 5 clinicians near them. And so where does ChatGPT get its information from? Well, it gets it from Google. And so there's lots of strategic advantages of having your own website on Google. You are building your digital portfolio, your presence, your trace, and therefore credibility and authority. That's my thinking of why websites are important. I mean, they may or may not help you get a better associate position. I do see your own website as a kind of like a virtual CV. I know people use Instagram that way, but the main thing for me is it should be patient facing and easy to establish contact with you and learn more about you as a clinician. Now, that was a long intro for today's Interference Cast. I am joined today with Rick O'Neill. Rick comes from the medical aesthetics background. He makes their websites, he makes their digital presence. He owns a company called LTF Digital, and he's really taught me a lot about the whole website, and he's really now making waves in dentistry. He's the author of Black Belt Digital. It's about growing your practice. So anything related to marketing yourself, marketing your clinic, he's the guy. He wrote the book on it. So it's a great honor to host him today to learn about the role of a website for for dentists. Also, one more thing, on the Protrusive Guidance community, when we talked about associates having websites, we ran a competition. Rick from LTF Digital, he gave 2 associates a free website. That's right, you heard it, a free website. And that post absolutely exploded. And so it just proved to me that actually most dentists see value in having their own website, but it's the how do I execute, where do I go? That's what's holding them back, and that's partly what we're going to solve today. Now, congratulations Dr. Margie Davies and Dr. Lauren Tachati for winning in that community competition. It took them just a couple of hours each, and they set up their own website. Links to them in the show notes so you can check what a contemporary associate website should look like. And of course, you can check out my website, jazz.dental. It's completely different now. It's simpler, it's better, it's cleaner. But first, let's get schooled by Rick O'Neill. Rick O'Neill, welcome to the Protrusive podcast, author of Black Belt Digital, consultant in aesthetics and dental marketing. And when I met you at the conference a few times, and then next thing I know, I see you in Facebook, and you're like chilling with Richard Branson, right? And so you made a very big impact on me. I've listened to some of the podcasts you've done. I love what you have to say and your philosophies and very like implementable advice you give. So it's an absolute pleasure to have you on. How are you, sir?
I'm good, thank you, Jazz. Thanks for name dropping Branson. I appreciate that. It elevates me beyond my worth, I'm sure.
Well, you shared some good advice with me when I called you that time, and I asked you a question. I asked you, what's the number one thing you learned from Richard Branson? Do you mind just rehashing? I mean, it might be different today, what you said to me on the phone, but if I was to ask you that, spring that on you again now, what's the number one thing that perhaps relevant for an audience of dentists listening that you could take what Richard Branson said and apply to us? What would you say?
I mean, he taught me a lot. And I've written a whole article on it. I'm still kind of disseminating what he taught me. And if I'm honest, I can't remember what I told you, so it probably is different now. But there was a few things that I think are relevant to anybody who's got ambition. So, and I know that the whole dental community is full of ambitious individuals. So one of the key things for me was having a purpose beyond profit. That's been a big impact on me. In fact, it led to us launching our own foundation within my business, LTF. He also taught me how to grow a team beyond yourself, kind of getting you out of the way of your team and the growth of your business. So he taught me this kind of principle, which he calls I do, we do, they do.
That's what you told me, by the way. That's what you told me.
Yeah, you go. See, I am consistent after all. So this was the idea of, you know, your values, you know how you do things, you've got your experience, your techniques, all the rest of it. The next step is to create your kind of inner circle of experts, the kind of key pillars that are going to grow your team. And you teach them the way you do it until it becomes we do. And then they need to be able to take that to the rest of the wider team, which becomes they do. So I do, we do, they do has become how I'm kind of growing my team. So we're about 30 people now. So I've had to kind of get to this point of, how do I get myself out of the way? I now kind of work for everybody else. We've got an upside down model. I just serve everyone else. I didn't learn that one from Branson. I learned that one from Gary Vee.
Nice.
But those two things are the key things that I learned being there with Sir Richard. Purpose beyond profit, because no matter how much money you make, if it's only about the money, ultimately you have failed, because you could have done so much more. You could have helped so many more people if you had a purpose outside of profit. And this second thing about getting out of your own way, getting out of the team's way, and being able to disseminate effectively, as he has done across 350 currently live companies within the Virgin Group. And he's the only human on earth who's ever built 8 separate billion-plus companies in 8 different markets. And he has to have a model to be able to achieve that. Although he's kind of like fun and cool and he kite surfs and jumps out of helicopters and all the rest of it, he is meticulous with the way he goes about it, and he has a lot of trust in people. He's very good at hiring A players and then disseminating through this model that I do, we do, they do.
Well, I took that away from when you told me that, and I've been applying it to my own team. There's a team of 10 behind Team Protrusive. And then even clinically, for those who own practices, it's a bit like, you know, how do you get your head nurse and your practice manager, right, on board in terms of the we do, and how they get everyone else on board? And it's applicable universally. Your company's name is, I love it. Okay. So look, touch and feel. And I heard on the podcast about what you said. And the funny thing about that is when you go to the bank and cash in the check, and then the bank manager would look at you like, it's called look, touch and feel. And he's cashing this check in, and leave it to their imagination what it's all about. The reason I mentioned this is just give us a little brief thing about how you got into the marketing space, websites, and the dentistry as well, specifically.
Yeah, so I've been doing this a long time. I actually built my first website in 1995, which for some of your listeners was pre your own birth. So I'm very jealous of you if that's you. I'm an old person, which means I've learned a lot along the way. LTF is my second agency. The first one we sold in 2007, and it was more broad. We worked with like banks and all sorts. But when we started LTF, our first client was a plastic surgeon. And that took us into this area of aesthetics, medical, cosmetic, surgical. And then naturally through the process of working with medical aesthetic practices, cosmetic surgery practices, we met a lot of dentists. And a lot of the dentists we work with have aesthetic clinics and dental clinics. Some of them have just dental clinics. We offer those people, and only those people, because we've kind of learned a lot about how the patients behave, digital support. So that's 360-degree digital support, building websites, SEO, running campaigns, and the strategic insight to do it. And we also work with what I call the other half of the market, so the manufacturers, people that create the devices, the products, the drugs that all of you guys use in aesthetics and dentistry. We work with them. So we work with Mertz Aesthetics, we work with Allergan, we work with device companies like Alma Laser, people like that. And so we have this kind of benefit of both sides of that market, the B2B side and the B2C side. So through that process, we've ended up becoming super niche. We don't work in any other market. We bring those insights. We've learned a lot about patient behavior, both in aesthetics and dental, and we're having a lot of fun along the way.
Well, it's exactly why we got the website together. I recently changed which my website, jazz.dental, used to be the website for the podcast, right? So, you know, back in the day when I started the podcast, that's the only domain I had. And then later I bought protrusive.co.uk. Stupidly, I don't know why I didn't buy protrusive.com. It was available, right? And I stupidly, and now when you go on it, the guy wants like $5,000 minimum from me, right? I'm like, screw you. So now I bought protrusive.dental, and so there we are. And protrusive.shop and all these other things, right? So I've got my sort of list of domains, if you like. But jazz.dental was my first real dental one. My patients really liked it because it's so easy, right? jaz.dental. And I had this like plug and play. Like I've had someone on the podcast from Shaz Menon, and we talked about branding, personal branding for dentists. And I shared the funny thing with him that, okay, you know what, I just manage my own website, just stick a WordPress thing in and stuff. And it was good for a while, but I don't want to be dealing with that, right? And so I wanted to have a simple landing page that was nice and neat, a few before and afters, and a way for patients to contact me. And that's what we set up. So thank you so much for that. But in this world where you have Instagram, and a lot of dentists are kind of using their Instagram as like a website vehicle, if you like. Okay, the contact me button and stuff. In this world we live in, where dentists also sometimes have, Google My Workspace, they have their own clinic and their own Google listing as an associate, which I find fascinating, right? How are they getting away with that with their principal and that kind of stuff, right? And then this whole thing about, well, all dental practices virtually have a website. Yes, some are crap, some are good. But where do you see the associates fit into having their own website?
Well, first of all, I think it is really important, but I'm going to take a step back and give kind of the context of why, and then we can talk about some of the things you mentioned, because you touched on a few things there, like, do they need one? Is Instagram enough? You talked about the Google profile thing, so we can probably walk around all of those things. I think it would be helpful.
Sorry, I was supposed to do them in segments, but it just all came out in one.
No, it's all good. I think we should just sort of walk back down the pathway that you've just laid out. All the way behind all of these things, it's important to think, again, as I mentioned, what's the patient behavior? Because if we understand that, then we can understand the value of these different digital assets. So patient behavior has changed dramatically when it comes to when they're doing their research around who's going to administer their treatments, about the practice they're going into, etc. It used to be not particularly sophisticated. It used to be quite a fast process. Now it's more sophisticated and it's a slower process. And I'll explain what that looks like exactly. And a lot of this has been uncovered by Google themselves. They do a lot of research on how people behave online, not just dental patients, but all kinds of consumers. And it teaches us a lot that we can apply directly to dental, whether it's clinics, principals, associates, etc. The principle that has been uncovered is something called ZMOT, the zero moment of truth. And ZMOT describes the process by which patients are doing their research before buying any kind of service. And that would include dental treatment, etc. Now, in the past, it was a very straightforward transactional process. They either see an advert, they look up a service, and they buy it or they don't buy. Nowadays, that is a much more protracted process over a longer period of time. They touch multiple platforms and channels. And this research called ZMOT, Zero Moment of Truth, found that on average, and this applies to aesthetics, dental, buying anything, somebody would consume several hours of content about any particular service they're researching across 4 different channels and up to 11 different touch points. So you've got this 7, 11, 4 thing to understand. And what that tells you is that it's not enough to just have your Instagram page. It's not enough to just have your Google profile. You need to be in all the places the potential patient might be, or your existing patient, when they're doing their research, when they're in their consideration phase. Do I want this person doing my treatment? Do I trust them? Before they get in touch with you, they have to know you, like you, and start to trust you. And they're not going to do that these days unless you hit those points. You've got to have enough content in enough places to provide that kind of reassurance, the social proof, etc. So when we
Rick,
understand...
can I just add here that I think this is a universal principle, because we live in a world whereby my wife will research which restaurant we're going to go to, right? Like even as something as small as that, right? Like we research, we're foodies, we research, heck, people even research, is it worth going to cinema to watch this film? Like if it's not got good enough reviews, I'm not going to go to cinema, right? And so myself included, when I've had to seek healthcare for myself, like I had a pneumothorax, I think it was earlier this year, like spontaneous pneumothorax, and I was given through my insurance, like, hey, there's 3 or 4 ENT guys you could see. I Googled every single one. Right. And so we are constantly being Googled. And so, and healthcare is like a very intimate thing, especially dentistry and aesthetics and stuff. So for sure, you are going by the person's online presence. Perception is reality.
100%. Yes. And it is universal. But the way it applies here is, you know, you're that patient, you are putting your face and your mouth and your teeth in the hands of somebody. And so you're going to do that research across multiple channels.
Hopefully not Turkey.
Hopefully not. No, please don't leave these shores. So, but it requires a level of research. And what marketers have typically told us over the years is that there's this funnel and there's 3 phases, you know, awareness, consideration, and conversion. But it's more complicated than that in reality. They will jump around all over the place. They'll find you on a Google search. Then they'll read your reviews, possibly in your Google business profile, possibly on one of the kind of review websites. Then they'll go and look at your social media, but then they want to understand more specifically about you. And that's where the website bit comes in, which is actually the only bit of digital real estate that you own. Everything else is rented. You don't own your Instagram profile. You don't own your Google profile. Those are rented spaces. The website is where you can properly set out your stall, give your version of who you are, what you do, what you stand for, your kind of testimonials, case studies, your expertise, the way that you approach what you do, your specialism. And you can really get across your personality, your flair, start to create your personal brand in a way that you can't do on these other channels. So that's where the website comes in. And that's where I think it's really important. It's not just, you know, it's not just a CV, it's your digital footprint, is your digital home that you
Digital
can
identity,
own
isn't
and
it?
shape. Yeah, 100%. And that's where you can start
Reminded
to
me of it's reminded me of like websites like Linktree. And so I don't think I've seen enough of this, but like some people may be tempted that I'll just have a link tree. Like why bother having anything more? But you don't get to tell your story. You don't get to have the features like before and after. You don't get to have like Linktree has a function when you have different audiences and stuff to divert them to the right place. But when it's specifically looking for patients, they need a home that when they type it in, that website will ideally be number one or up there, and they can see that okay, this person is known to the world. They're not a scammer. They have some sort of credibility and social proof before I even book this consultation.
100%. And that's credibility piece, and the trust piece is massive because the patient is sophisticated. They're savvy. They do their homework. To the point where in the surgical world, we've even seen patients researching the serial numbers of breast implants. They do that deeper research, and they're into forums and they're reading case studies and they want to see the personal site of the surgeon, etc. And the whole thing applies to associates, principals, you name it, because that trust piece can only happen when you exist digitally, because what else have they got? They can't find you anywhere else. That's how they're doing their homework right now. And so if you're not there, or you've only got these kind of rented spaces, so you've got your Instagram page, which is great, and they will go and check that out because they want to see what happened like last Tuesday with you. They want to get the vibe and see, are you real? Are you current? What's going on? But the website is your hub. It's your personal brand space that you own online. That's where you can really establish who you are as a practitioner, as an expert.
One thing I hate about websites in any service, especially like in healthcare or any, is you go on a website and you're looking for the address, or you're looking for a contact button, or you're looking for that, and then you're spending like more than 5 seconds like looking for this bit. So it's easy to say that, okay, if an associate was to have a website, to be able to find out where you work, because associates, they often work in many practices. They work in maybe 1, 2, 3, sometimes even 4 if you're a specialist and you're like doing an endodontist between different practices. So it should be really, really easy to find that contact me, find out where you work, and make it frictionless as possible to get seen. But what else should be on an associate website? Like what is going too far and what is about right? Any guidelines that you can offer? Because like I look at my old website now, and it was just way too scattered, way too much. Because at the time I thought if I have blogs on there and stuff, it will help the SEO. But I just found that it was too confusing. I had some stock page, embarrassing. I had these forever and ever because I never made time for it. There were these stock pages, which like was all like the American text that came in the template in the first place, right? And I was just always so lazy because I was like, I've got enough patience, I don't need to worry about this. But it doesn't look professional, it doesn't look good. So what should be on there?
Yeah, I mean, just on that point of imagery, it's not very expensive these days to have a half-day photo shoot or video shoot, and I would recommend it. It massively elevates everything about you, your personal brand, and this website, to go from like stock pictures or like AI pictures these days to a professional shoot makes a massive difference. And it might not be something that's super comfortable for you, going in front of the camera and, having headshots and stuff, but it really does elevate you. It adds a level of professionalism. It makes you much more relatable instantly to the patient that's doing their research. So that's just on kind of look and feel.
You're saying about the photo shoot, video shoot. I totally get that. I think to really build your credibility and presence, it's very anti-stock images and anti-AI, because people nowadays can, I mean, I know they can look really real, but to try and create those realistic scenarios of human expression of yours, it's not there. So to have your own brand, your personal brand manifested through a half-day shoot, like you said, video and photo is money well spent.
Yeah, absolutely. And also video if you can, because getting across who you are, how you are, your tone, how calm you are, how kind of expert you are, it can only really be done through video. So even if you just create a nice welcome video for that website, that's going to make a massive difference. And then when it comes to like the key building blocks for a website, like you said with yours previously, it was like scattered. There was maybe too much stuff. You don't need, you're not building the clinic site. This is just about you as a professional. This is about who you are. So it's your credentials, your ethos, your specialisms, what you do best, your focus on treatment areas, concerns, etc., your proof, so before and afters, case studies, reviews, etc. And then, like you said, how to reach me. How can you get in touch with me? Where am I practicing at any one time? And make that super simple. It can be a simple contact form. You can use chatbots effectively these days. We work with a couple of really great chatbots. But those are the kind of key building blocks. And then if you have other things that you want to bring to it, so if you're looking for speaking opportunities or you want to be a key opinion leader for somebody, you might add extra creds or experience there about I've spoken on these stages, or I'm this kind of speaker or presenter, or I run extra training or workshops, etc. But you don't need a huge amount more than that. You just need to do that really well. And then whatever you do, that site needs to be search optimized, because no matter how cool it looks and whether it's got the best information in the world, if no one can find it against your name or certain specialisms that people are looking for, it's not going to really pay you back. So that's where the return on investment in doing this comes from, is if it's search optimized.
So most dentists will, healthcare professionals, look at you very blank, like when you say search optimized, right? Now, to me, that's like if someone types in Dr. Jaz Gulati, then I come up number one. But ideally, what would be nice is if someone types in composite bonding treatment, for example, okay, that you also show up very high. And that's not so easy because there's a lot of competition in that space. But what's easier to do is most likely people, when they search composite bonding Manchester. Now they've narrowed it, and then you have more of a chance to be there. But dentists have no idea on how to do this. They leave it up to they make it up. I just made it up on my website, and so I just hope and pray that people turn up. What do you do to help dentists? Because I suppose you don't leave it to dentists to do that, but how do you facilitate the search optimization?
Yeah.
Hello, YouTube Protrusive. I know you're watching on YouTube, and I hope you're enjoying this episode so far. But I wanted to highlight, in case you don't know yet, we have an amazing viewing experience on protrusive.app, our website, our network, our platform. So I just want to spend a minute to show you what this looks like. On the left side, you see the navigation, and when you join the app, you get a 1-minute video tour of the entire network. Now, in terms of where the magic happens, that's in the Protrusive community, because you might come for the content, but you'll stay for the community of the nicest and geekiest dentists in the world. We have all these polls, we have a chat group, there's always active chats and dentists helping dentists. And really what I want to do is create a really supportive environment that's not like the environment we have on Facebook, and is built on the values of niceness and geekiness. If you are nice and geeky, you belong here. Now, to make this a safe space, we have a manual process of approval. We actually verify that you are a dental professional before you get in here. So we have hundreds of applicants a day. So if it's been about 2 days and you haven't heard anything, either something's in your junk or you need to reach out. If you're still waiting to join your tribe, email marie@protrusive.co.uk. That's MARI@protrusive.co.uk, and she'll investigate what's happened. Now, all the videos you have on YouTube are also on here, but you actually have some extra ones for free that you don't have on YouTube. So you get some bonus content that's not on YouTube. And actually for the future, I'm not taking things out of YouTube, but some things are not appropriate for the wider public, and I want to sort of safeguard that information, which is like dentist talk, if you like. So that's why a lot of the content is only here and not on YouTube. So you're kind of missing out if you're not on here. That's why I'd love for you to join there. And if you join one of our paid plans, then what you get is access to the CE quiz, like this one, and you can get CPD or CE certificates, and also you get our premium notes. So these are a great aid memoir or revision for an episode to really cement your learning. And whilst we have ads and YouTube places ads on YouTube, we don't have that on our network. So for the paid plan, you get to see all of the premium notes without any of the ads. And of course, you get to support Team Protrusive and help us to continue what we're doing. I'm just going to gloss over the Protrusive Vault, which has all our infographics and downloadables. These are all our masterclasses at this moment in time, and we're always planning to add more. And if you look at them, there's about 1, 2, 3, it's about 7 of them. But actually, if you look at the replay section, some of the live masterclasses that I've done and some of the training that people pay for on other websites is all on there, included as part of the masterclass subscription. And if you're a student, don't fear, we have a special section for you with all the student notes, which anyone can access. So for example, here is one on exodontia. So it's all there waiting for you on Protrusive Guidance. Please head over to the website, which is protrusive.app. Make an account on your browser. This could be Safari, Chrome, however you want to do it. And once you've made your login, then you can download the iOS or Android app and then log in through there. So the reason to make the subscription primarily on the website first is that you get access to a free trial, which you don't get if you do make an account on Android, iOS. If you make it on the website, you get access to the free trial and you get our best price if you sign up through protrusive.app. So our best deals and free trials are only on protrusive.app. Of course, we always put the link below in the description. And thank you so much for enjoying our videos on YouTube. But it's now finally time to level up your experience. Back to the episode.
So first of all, it's got to be super relevant, like you said. So you're not practicing, well, usually nationwide. So you have areas or a couple of cities that you might be practicing in. So that's the first thing. But the second thing, really important, is with the content that goes on your site, it needs to contain information that answers questions that patients are asking right now. And so the way we facilitate that with any given practitioner or clinic owner or principal, whoever it is, in this example, we're talking about creating a website for an associate. We will have an FAQ section in there that relate to the expertise that this associate has. And then we will make sure that those questions are trending. So we use a really cool platform called Answer the Public. And when you use any given search phrase in there, like you said, composite, could be implants, could be any kind of particular specialism, you enter the key phrase in there and it gives you this chart. It actually comes up in like a wheel, which is all the questions that people are asking right now from a patient perspective about that particular treatment or concern. We would then pick the most common of those and write FAQs and the answers on your site. Couple that with local SEO. So if you're in Manchester, the metadata for that page and the headings in that page will include the words Manchester and those answers and your name. Then you're hitting three things. You're hitting pulling in what we call discovery search, which is the people that are searching by question or by concern. Local search, which is they're in your catchment area. And brand search, which is people searching for you by name. So if you can hit those three things, you've got the best chance of pulling in not only people who have been referred to you by name, but also people who are looking for help with things that you can help them with in your local area. Then you kind of win the game of search.
That's brilliant that you do that and you're able to facilitate that in an FAQ. What role does a dentist have though, in terms of, are they checking the content? Are they, the ideal dentist, because it's something that the dentist needs to actually have some sort of input as well, right? And then the more they give you, the better job you can do for them. So what kind of input would you want from an ideal dentist client?
So usually in this case, and we're going to talk about this, but you have full autonomy to build this site out. You're getting given a toolkit, you can create your own kind of content. But in particular with the FAQs, we will get a practitioner 80 to 90% of the way there by doing the research on the keywords. The input required is, these are my specialisms. These are the things that I'm very, very well known for and very good at. And then that gets fed into like the terms that are used, the answers and the questions that are used, and then adding your personality into the answers, because Google has this kind of principle called EAT, E-E-A-T, and it's always has been and probably always will be the way they decide to rank content. And it stands for experience, expertise, authority, and trust. And so the bit that's required, the input that's required from the dentist is to add those things into the content. So we will provide the data and the questions that we think you should be answering and give you a start point in any kind of engagement. And then your job is to add in your experience, your expertise in a way that you can be shown as authoritative and trustworthy in the way that those questions are answered. It's not just the generic kind of content, because anyone, my nan could go on ChatGPT and answer some of these questions, but you have to hit those four pieces in the way that you write the content.
That makes a lot of sense. And the other question I had then was social proof, i.e., some of the work that you have carried out, taking photos of, and you want to show prospective patients that, hey, these are some of the cases I love treating, to appeal to similar problems that patients see in their own mouths and be like, okay, fine, I'd like to have a before and after like that. What's a good way to, like, what is a rule? Like, ideally, the more the merrier, but is there a magic number of cases, or is video better? Is just photos better? How have you optimized, like, how do you optimize the websites for the display of this social proof?
There is such a thing as too much. You can end up looking a bit like a butcher's shop window if you've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of before and afters. And it's not needed. It's better to do a few things really well and to take a kind of case study approach. So we would always recommend displaying only your best quality, clinical style photography before and afters, where it's very consistent before and after in terms of lighting, composition, all the kind of best practices on that side, but then couple it with maybe a video testimony from the patient if they're happy to do it. And because then you've got that kind of real patient story to go with it. You're not just looking at a pair of gnashers on the screen. You have the kind of emotional aspect to it, because of course people want to see that you can straighten teeth and that you can do your work. But as soon as they've seen a few before and afters like that, they get that you can do that. What they then want to know, because most people buy with emotion and then later they'll back it up with logic, they want to hear from a couple of your patients directly. That's real social proof. A before and after picture is not social proof. It's a technical checkpoint. It's a basic, it's the table stakes. The difference you can make is the real emotional story from the patient. Like, this expert really looked after me. I understood the whole process. I felt well looked after throughout. It was relatively painless. I'm really, really happy with the result. It's changed my confidence. It's changed my life. I would highly recommend that. Then you're getting the emotional connection. And
Does that need to be professionally shot? Like, does it? Because I think a lot of dentists get worried that, but I don't have, like, see some very fancy posh websites and they got, like, you can see that they've got the makeup artist and they've come in and they've got, like, all this B-roll and, like, the patient speaking, and it's very, like, a high production. So I think dentists get put off that, I can't compete with that. I'm just an associate. I just want to have put a few before and afters. Is that mobile phone footage going to be a detriment, or is that enough?
In many ways, it's an advantage, because it's great if you can produce high quality content, but it's more useful for marketing campaigns, because sometimes in the algorithm, you do get rewarded for really high quality, well lit, dynamic editing, all that kind of stuff. But in this case, the only real thing that matters is the message, the story. And actually, in many ways, the more authentic, the better, because people believe it. People are not stupid. If it's too polished, it starts to then, they question whether it's true. So I wouldn't be paranoid about the quality of it. Yes, do your best. Try and get a tripod and a ring light if you can, because it just helps to kind of visually take it in. But, and if there's a microphone available, fantastic. But beyond that, it's the story that matters. It's the message. And I'm more and more convinced about this as we do more and more campaigns and websites. The messaging is what makes the difference, right? There's a billion agencies, web designers, digital campaigners out there in every market. The mechanics of it are not the magic. The magic is the messaging and the stories. That's what makes the difference. If you can understand exactly who you're targeting, so let's say it's, for the sake of an argument, middle-aged women, their pain points, the things they're going through. You can write messaging and you can tell stories that hits them right between the eyes. And that will make the difference between how you present your websites, your social content, whether you do start running ads or you send out email campaigns to your list of patients. The message is what matters. So I wouldn't be super paranoid about competing with the really high production stuff that you see.
And I always say to dentists, start now, get perfect later. Start, getting these recordings of your patients who are just really over the moon. They're usually very happy to give you this testimonial, those genuinely happy patients and their stories, right? They're the human story behind the teeth, which is just, a special thing. And also, like, I always think, do something that, I forgot where I read this now. It might have been The 5 Types of Wealth by Sal Bloom, but it's like, do something that satisfied the 10-year-old version of yourself and the 80-year-old version of yourself. So 10-year-old version of yourself is like, oh, I get to make a little video and it's fun to ask someone how something went and them to talk nicely about me. But make the 80-year-old who can look back at their life and say, you know what? I really made a difference in this person's life.
I love that.
And how sad is it that many dentists will retire and they don't have any photos or videos to show their grandchildren or whatever, or look back on and say, you know what, I did that. I was part of that journey. I made that person cry, or made that patient wedding ready, or I got them out of pain, wherever it could be. Have some sort of photos and videos behind that is a very special thing.
I love that, and that's amazing. And I would just add to that as well. I will often say to practitioners, do you know what? It's actually your responsibility to tell the stories of the transformations that you've achieved. Because, I mean, you mentioned Turkey earlier. That's just a good example of it's your responsibility to put yourself out there and show what really good work looks like and really good transformations look like, so that the public is educated. It's actually your responsibility as a healthcare professional. That's my view on it. We have in the aesthetic side, there's a lot of non-medics that practice injectables and things like that. And it, in my opinion, shouldn't be happening, but it does in the UK. And so for the medical community there, I say it's their responsibility to get better at marketing, to educate the public. Because often the non-medics...
The more dental equivalent, well, just to go on that, the more dental equivalent of that would be the hundreds of illegal tooth whitening clinics done by beauticians, for example, right? And they're not shy to post on Instagram every hour on whitening, come on over whitening, these beauticians, non-dental running whitening courses, and they're happy to post this. Meanwhile, the dentists are like embarrassed to talk about teeth whitening. Well, obviously we have an obligation to give the public the correct advice and get them to see a professional.
That's bang on. And I will say the uncomfortable truth is that the non-qualified people are often better marketers. And that's why there's a responsibility there to get on board with presenting yourself, creating your digital footprint, communicating the stories and transformations that you've been a part of or responsible for. And then to your point, I love the kind of legacy piece there as well. Showing your grandkids, look at what I did for people. This is what I did. Granddad did this, and I helped all these people.
Well, which is why I'm a big fan of dental photography and now videography. Rick, let me tell you about the cool thing I'm doing now. The way I'm doing my dental examinations is you're wearing, let's say, I've got these extra glasses, right? You're wearing them, okay? I've got my loupes, which I use to see magnified, but I've got a loop-mounted camera. Now, as you're wearing the glasses, you can see the live camera feed from my head, like zoomed in. And so now you're sat there, you can't see anything else, but you can see the video on the glasses. And I'm doing your checkup. And I say, open up, okay, stick your tongue out, move it left and right. And you're seeing this. And I'm saying, okay, you don't have mouth cancer. Let's have a look here. Can you see, Rick, that you're missing the gum over here? And I've been doing this for about 2 months now. And this is going to be the future. Right. And so again, I'm just excited about it. So I want to talk about the whole video front of it. And we're changing patient communication forever. So I'm very excited to be pioneering this movement and this setup.
And have you been sharing examples of that online when you can? How that works?
Yes, I'm doing a webinar on it at the end of this month. And then I'm going to be going, in a much bigger way on social media about it, because this is something I'm so excited to show people, because this really differentiates you.
Yeah, I love that. And for patients as well, to see how that works and what it
They've
might...
been blown away, Rick. Honestly, patients have been absolutely like, wow. As I was leaving my old clinic and I was just introducing this, and patients like, oh, I don't ever want to go to a dentist ever again that doesn't show me this. Like, I think that's what they were saying, right?
There you go.
That's the kind of level of power it has. So I think I'm pioneering a movement here that in 5 years' time, there's going to be standard. I'm very, very excited about that. But this is the kind of stuff that really gets me excited. So the whole thing about websites, like, okay, fair enough. We need to have loops. It's good for our posture. We get to see more. But then if you have a microscope, it's like, for a lot of people, that's overkill. But it's a great thing to have. So when it comes to investment, dentists can be a bunch which are like, they have to really think about it a lot before they go on a course or whatever. And I always say invest in yourself, right? And always invest in yourself. But a lot of dentists, they don't have, most associates do not have their own website. And so you got to think, why is this the case, right? And so one factor would be like they're the timid type, or they're shy and they don't like to put themselves out there. I get it. But in this world, okay, for the reasons that we mentioned already, you need to for the 7-4-11, to the ability to market yourself. I think a website has a place, which I've had one for 9 years. But then the other thing is that, I've got to spend money on this as well as that and this. And so when the first time I ever got a quote for a website, they were like, you're an associate. I'm like, yeah, can I have my own website? It's quoted £3,600 plus a monthly maintenance from there. What do you think about pricing? And is there going to be an ROI, and how can we measure that?
So I always talk about the difference between a cost and an investment. And, a cost, if there's no return, is a waste of money. But if there's a return, then the cost is less significant. And we've created, as we have with your site, Jazz, a way for associates to have their own website for £99 a month. And in terms of ROI, it is measurable. We've already created sites for independent aesthetic practitioners and dentists, and we're seeing the ROI. Because if we go back to where we were talking about search optimization and bringing in patients that are looking for help with certain areas, certain concerns, it doesn't take more than 1 or 2 new patients, even in a year, to deliver a return on investment on something like £99 a month. So there is an ROI. The deeper ROI, brand equity. So you're building your personal brand online. You're building your digital footprint. You are going to attract other opportunities. Now, I get that some people, like you said, are timid, but other people are ambitious. They want to get out there. They also, outside of attracting new patient business, they want to get speaking gigs, training gigs, etc. This is your platform to do it. And when it's professionally done and it looks slick and it has all those building blocks that we talked about, it will convert visitors into opportunities. This happens even for me. I know it happens for you, Jazz, when you've got your personal site really well run and it's up there, it attracts and it converts people. So it educates and it converts. And that's where the ROI comes in. And I think
it's measurable, right? Like you said, you can see how many queries are coming in.
100%.
And so that's the real magic. When I started to see that, okay, people are Googling and then they are inquiring, and then I get an email saying I'm interested in sometimes Invisalign, sometimes TMD quite a lot of time. And so I see, okay, thank goodness I have a contact page on my website, but it gives you a channel other than social media, because some people aren't on Instagram, right? If you make Instagram the only way someone can reach out to you, then you're probably going to miss out.
You are going to miss out. And also, with the best will in the world, some accounts can disappear. They can be shadow banned, they can be hacked, hijacked. I've had a couple of clients that have been held to ransom over their Instagram accounts, especially when they get a bit of a bigger following. Sometimes someone can hack in there and then charge you a lot of money to get it back or destroy it, etc. So it's rented space, it's a risk. And yes, you can sometimes pick up inquiries from having an Instagram, but usually the website is where the conversion happens. Because usually you're getting DMs usually because they haven't found you anywhere else. They haven't found your website and been able to explore. And you're probably going to get more questions that might waste your time or from people who aren't quite right if you only have social media. Whereas your website can do a job to bridge that gap. It can kind of bridge that belief gap. It can answer a lot of those initial questions. It can do a better job of converting people. And that's when you see the measurable, very tangible return in that today I created my own website, and 12 months from now, looking back, I can see I got these patients from it. I got these other opportunities from it. The value of those over their lifetime is going to be X thousand. And the website's costing me £99 a month. The ROI is very easy to see then.
No, that's a very fair value. And one thing it reminds me of is that nowadays, like, we're moving away even from Google, right? We're literally going straight to ChatGPT and say, I'm in Manchester, I want composite bonding. Who should I go and see? Right? And then ChatGPT will give you 3 to 5 recommendations. And this is how people behave, right? This is consumer behavior. But where is ChatGPT getting information from? It was getting it from what's available on websites. Okay, and if your
Yeah.
website it says about composite bonding in Manchester, it will look at you, it will look at your how long it's been there for, and whether you're credible, and it will spout you out.
Yep. It's worth talking about this because we get a lot of questions about how do I get recommended in ChatGPT, etc. And of course, ChatGPT is becoming very popular for those kind of searches. But like you said, it has to get its information from somewhere, and it gets it from Google. Google is God as far as we're concerned in search optimization, and they're not to be messed with. And ChatGPT think they can take them on, but we will see, because they hold all the cards. And not to get too technical, but up until pretty recently, Google allowed things like ChatGPT and other services to be able to scrape the top 100 results for any given search term. Google just recently flexed its muscles to show everyone who was boss by restricting that to the top 10. And so it's showing, again, who holds this information and who holds the cards. It's showing how important it is to have a very well search optimized website footprint, because then you've got ultimately the best chance of showing up in traditional Google search. Google now has the AI answer at the top, as you've probably seen. They also have AI mode, which you can flick into. It's like a chatbot feature. And people are going directly into the apps, Gemini, Grok, Claude, ChatGPT, those guys. But they get their info from Google. They were previously, as a side point, getting a lot of information from Reddit, but that's dropped right down now to just a few % of where they get their info from. And so they've only
like
really
40 to 50% was coming from Reddit or something, wasn't it? Like,
it was originally, yeah. It's kind of, they've moved on now, thank goodness, because it's not the best source, not the best source of factual medical information. But what's really interesting with the AI tools is, like you said, in Google search, you get 10, 20, 30 results, and Google says, like, you figure it out. But in ChatGPT, it's giving its opinion, essentially. But it's getting that opinion from only two places, really. Its original training model, which was built, a year or two ago. And then it will go out to the live web. And who dominates the live web is Google, is 98% still of traditional search. And then Bing is the other 2%. And then there's a few weird ones. Bing, though, is still interesting because it tends to service boomers and older as a demographic. So if you service people who are 50, 55 plus, they tend to be using Bing. Why? Because those are people that don't change the browser when they get the laptop out of the box when they buy it, and it's got Bing on it. So those two sources are what's powering AI. So therefore, it's another strong reason to have a well optimized website, because it's going to help you get found in AI.
Amazing. Well, Rick, you've answered all my questions, and I think it's a compelling argument that is validated my choice 9 years ago to have my own website. Thankfully now taken care of by you guys. Just to simplify, I'm just happier with it now. So thank you for that. Obviously, what you do is far beyond associate websites. So firstly, for the associates, how can they inquire about getting a website through you? And then also, what other services do you offer for principals, clinics, and everything that you may be able to serve them through?
Yeah, of course. So for the associates that want to, build their own digital footprint, we've got a very simple to use site, which is at dentist.digital online. Super happy with that domain name.
So dentist.digital.
Dentist.digital.
Nice.
And so you can go there and you can sign up for your associate website, and you get control over colors, style, content, etc. It's super easy to use. And anyone that wants to look at an example can look at yours. And
Jazz.dental, still the same domain name, just moved over to the associate package you guys got.
There you go. And then LTF as a wider offering, we provide done for you digital marketing and website services for dentists and clinic owners. We provide a partnership approach. So we will partner with you over the long term, always with a focus on the results. So we only have some key metrics that we really care about: new patient numbers, average patient lifetime value, and new numbers of inquiries or leads. Yes, the other things matter to us, like where you're ranking, what traffic you're getting, all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, we hold ourselves to account on the growth of the business or the growth of your patient list over the sort of 6, 12, 18-month period. Our full service encompasses email marketing, search optimization, running ad campaigns, writing content, building out websites to a very high standard, creating automated educational content that goes out to patients, the whole thing. And we've been doing that.
A clinic could already have their website made through someone else, but they might want to optimize it or do Google AdWords, that's something that you would help them with.
100%. Yeah. We very often will inherit an existing site and then we will optimize it. So we will carry out an audit and we'll squeeze more conversions out of the existing website by making a few tweaks. And then we'll start our marketing program. So we will tailor it to the types of people you're trying to attract and the services that you offer or don't. And there's a few levels to which we can drive campaigns and a few different areas that we can look at in terms of different ad platforms, etc. But the only other thing we haven't talked about is content creation. So we have a bank of videographers around the country. I think we did something like 80 content shoots in the last 12 months. So we can come out and, capture the team, your patients, those emotional stories that we talked about to really help bring the whole thing to life.
It's more something that I imagine clinics and practice owners do rather than associates.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a particularly ambitious associate, you could also use that service to kind of capture your patient stories and things like that. But it tends to be for the clinic, capturing the team, the location, what's on offer, patient testimonials in, sort of treatment demos, that kind of thing.
I hate websites of clinics that have got just stock photos, right? And then it's just a warm feeling about websites where they've had that photo shoot day, all the team are wearing the same sort of scrubs, they usually got their figs on and everything looks good and stuff. So it just is a nicer, warmer feel than the stock images that are used that you see.
Yeah, I mean, some stock images, I must have seen them hundreds of times over the years. Because I think what happens is people go onto these stock sites, they type in smiling, beautiful person.
We all know that brunette. It's got really straight hair, brunette, light blue t-shirt. Okay, we've all seen her. We all know which one I'm talking about.
She's famous, and patients do the same because they're doing their research. They're looking at multiple dental sites before they choose who they're going to go with. By the way, they make that decision in about half a second when they land on the website. And so if it's the same old stock image or it looks a bit of a janky homemade website, doesn't matter how amazing you guys are and your practice is stunning and the team's amazing, they're never going to meet you because they make that perception when they hit your website. So if you can elevate it with, like you said, those warm, welcoming images that are of real people and you kind of get the sense of what it's like to come into the practice before you actually do, that's when you can start to hit that know you, like you, trust you bit through your digital footprint.
Amazing. And so if any principals are listening, where can they find out more?
So principals, if you head to ltf.digital, our brand new site just launched, which we are very proud of, and you can see everything we can do to help you there. And there's a funky chatbot on there that you can have a conversation with, or you can get in touch with us for a call and we'll do a quick discovery to see how we can help you.
Amazing. Rick, thanks so much for your time and educating us on the importance of having a website. I mean, I've been a believer in it for years. It's nice to get a new face on it now and get rid of the old clunky website and to have it more simplified and nicer. So thanks for that.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me on, Jazz.
Well, there we have it, guys. Thank you so much for listening to Rick all the way to the end. Now you know websites have a place in this universe, even if you're an associate. I've used Rick's platform to do my dentist website, and he's also doing a makeover. I've trusted Rick with my own website and now also the Protrusive website, which is currently in the making. I want to thank him for giving away the 2 websites to Lauren and Margie. But for you, the Protruserati, there is a discount available of 50% off. If you're part of our community, you can claim 50% off. Head over to protrusive.co.uk/website. That's protrusive.co.uk/website, and you activate the 50% off. I don't get any commissions from this. This is just another perk of being a Protruserati. You can check out mine, Margie's, or Lauren's website. It's good because Margie's got a bit of experience and Lauren's a baby dentist. He's only a few years out. And so you get to see, using the LTF platform, the kind of website they made. So I'll put that in the show notes. Thank you once more. I'll catch you same time, same place next week. Bye for now.